So in terms of the study, certainly satisfaction with consumer direction was no worse than for agency-directed services. There was no statistically significant difference in satisfaction between younger persons with, among younger persons with disabilities, but among older people using consumer-directed services, they were much more satisfied than those using agency-directed care. So that's certainly a plus for agency-directed care. Well, turning now to the research agenda, I think one of the main things that people should be thinking about in terms of research really is under this rubric of quality assurance. As more and more money through Medicaid and other services goes into home and community-based services, I think there's going to be a larger and larger demand for some kind of monitoring or oversight, some sort of fiduciary requirement on the part of the government that they be satisfied that all this money that they're spending is being well spent. Certainly the findings of my research and other research shows on average that things are going pretty well with consumer-directed services and with home care more generally, but quality assurance systems are not about the averages, they're about the extremes and making sure that at the low edge that problems don't occur. So one of the issues is how should systems be established to monitor home care over time, and how should quality be measured? The second set of issues relates to the workforce and quality. We've heard quite a bit about workforce already today, but if you look primarily at the research that's been done so far, most of the research looks at the relationship between a number of factors, organizational culture, training, wages, and turnover rates, but they don't usually go the next step to say what's the relationship to quality. And that really is, after all, the bottom line. I mean, if we could get high quality with high turnover, we'd probably care less about it, but the research hasn't really made the connection between turnover and the quality. And so the fundamental policy issue is what's the relationship between training, culture change, higher wages and benefits, and higher quality in home and community-based services and nursing homes and other forms of long-term care. Turning now to more general issues of home and community-based services, one of the persistent barriers to this day on the expansion of home and community-based services is policymakers are unconvinced about what they are getting for the money. What is the effect of supplying home and community-based services? And I think really part of the importance of some of the research that Mitchell Plant has done is to show some of the impacts of unmet need, and I know Peter is going to be talking about that a little bit further, but we need to be looking more at building a case for what is the impact of home and community-based services as a way of justifying expansion of funding in that area. That raises the other issue in terms of expanding funding and coverage for home and community-based services, which gets to the issue basically of financing, and that is the fear. There are really two issues. One is we continue to have the fear of the woodwork effect, or to put it in more technical terms, what's the price elasticity of the provision of home and community-based services? Are we going to have a huge expansion of expenditures if we offer home and community-based services on an unconstrained basis, and what kinds of cost sharing might be reasonable if we were to expand coverage at higher levels? what is basically the responsiveness of demand to different levels of price. We know zero about that. The other, we've lost my, You know nothing. I know nothing. Thank you. Thank you. The other issue, and this has been a perennial issue in home and community-based services, is that 25 years ago we had a groundbreaking demonstration, the channeling demonstration, and Peter Kemper was part of the group that evaluated that. And basically that study found that expanding home care didn't save money, in large part because it didn't substitute for nursing home care. Well, it's now 25 years later. States have had an enormous amount of experience with home and community-based services. You know, have we learned anything in the last 25 or 30 years that would change the results if we were to do something to look at that issue now? Because right now we're sort of caught between, on the one hand, people who are very fearful that it's not going to be cost effective, and those people who blithely assert that it's cost effective, even though the literature on that, at least for the older population, shows the other direction. Well, in conclusion, starting back with the study that we did in Washington State, I think it offers yet another level of comfort for policymakers in terms of the quality and the satisfaction of people who receive consumer-directed services. It is, at least on average, there's certainly no reason to fear, and again, for the elderly population, they appear to be substantially more satisfied than with agency-directed services, which may be a function of the fact that they're hiring their relatives to care for them. Blood is thicker than water in the United States as well as other countries. So finally, in the research agenda, really laid out three broad areas: one, quality; one, workforce; and then the third, going back to some of the earliest concerns about home and community-based services, about its effectiveness and efficiency. Thank you.